Hey guys. Hello, hello. Let's go ahead and get into videos of Solomon's succession to King David. Like I said in my introduction video, I had spoke too soon when I said this was easy, painless, peaceful, no drama. I spoke much too soon. I did not, as you know, read ahead. I did not read ahead. I did not know the truth of what was to come with King David's, or Solomon's succession of King David here. But let's go ahead and begin with the death of King David. We have yet to meet that point, and it seems as though that was the tipping point to all these things that transpire next. So, starting out with the quote here, we have, "Love is blind, and friendship closes its eyes." So with this, I didn't know exactly how I was going to tie this in, but it seems to be a little bit of a nod, right, to old age, since we have the "love is blind" saying, right? Although King David wasn't blind, he was certainly up there in years. It did not make him incoherent, right? Not able to make decisions. Although he was suffering, he was having some sort of an illness where he couldn't keep warm, as we remember. So he was bedridden most of the time. He had to be in his chamber. Anyways, he was not blind, but he was certainly older, and it was time. It was just time for David to go, right? So in these coming days, it says to go ahead and just finish off this quote, "and friendship closes its eyes." Much of the things that happen within this story, it might make you want to close your eyes to this, right? It's kind of a bit of a shock, I would say, to the system. So let's go ahead and learn about what's happening here with love and friendship and what becomes of this love and friendship, okay? Quite the opposite. Anyways, when the time drew near for David to die, he gave charge to Solomon and his son, gave charge to Solomon, I think it's just his son. Just Solomon his son, and his son. Solomon his son. And he's giving Solomon instructions, okay? He's saying, now that you're in charge, I am going to need you to take care of a few things that I should have done when I was younger and not so handicapped, and things that I wish I did. He's now passing these duties off to Solomon. So let's go ahead and discover. It's quite a list, 5 to 6 things here, but I'm only going to read a few of them. It says, "Now you yourself know that Joab, son of Zeruiah," now you yourself know what Joab, son of Zeruiah, did to me, what he did to the 2 commanders of Israel's armies, Abner, son of Ner, and Amasa, son of Jether. He killed them, shedding their blood in peacetime as if in battle. And with that blood he stained the belt around his waist and the sandals on his feet. Deal with him according to your wisdom, but do not let his gray head go down to the grave in peace." Then that's a moment there, because we talked about Joab. We were wondering, how David felt about his aggression, right? Simple as that. Joab was very aggressive towards people within the community and to David's own son, Absalom, right? So Joab definitely had this anger and this fire inside of him that David himself could not put out. I don't know if it was because he didn't have the courage or, what it was, but he did not feel that it was his duty to inflict harm or inflict violence on him. Until he lies on his deathbed, he knows Joab might become a problem for Solomon. So he's warning Solomon, go ahead and take care of him when the time is right. Conversely, right, we have show kindness to the sons of Barzillai of Gilead. And let them be among you who eat at your table. They stood by me when I fled from your brother Absalom. So again, this was that group of people that took King David in and took care of him and showed him kindness. We might remember that little snippet there. David is just reminding Solomon to go ahead and take care, to nurture them as they nurtured King David. Okay. Then it says here, David rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city of David. So Solomon sat on the throne of his father David, and his rule was firmly established. So Solomon set in stone, David had passed away, may he rest in peace, right? Yes, let's go ahead and read on. Now Adonijah, son of Haggith, went to Bathsheba, Solomon's mother. Bathsheba asked him, "Do you come peacefully?" He answered, "Yes, peacefully." So he continued, "Please ask King Solomon, he will not refuse you, to give me Abishag the Shunammite as my wife." So this is interesting. We forgot, right, what happened to Adonijah. Does he feel some kind of discontentment? It seems as he does, because he feels that he should be entitled to something, as the second oldest son next to Absalom, right? He was beloved, he was handsome, he should be entitled to something. Bathsheba, right, Solomon's mother, she honors his request. She thinks, oh yeah, that's a fair ask. I will go speak to the king. We'll see what he says. So with Bathsheba asking King Solomon, he reacts not graciously, I would say, terribly actually. He reacts pretty terribly to this request. So his mother, right, Bathsheba, asked Solomon, he's like, hey, Adonijah is asking for Abishag. Oh, and if we forgot, we didn't really talk about it too much, but Abishag was the, I wouldn't say she was a concubine, but she was somebody who was charged with taking care of the king in his old age. It actually said in there that they didn't sleep together, the king and Abishag, but she was just a very beautiful woman, very gentle, very kind, that was charged with taking care of the king in his old age. I guess she's very sought after, right, as we will learn. Anyways, then King Solomon swore by the Lord, "May God deal with me, be it ever so severely, if Adonijah does not pay with his life for this request." So King Solomon gave orders to Benaiah, son of Jether, and he struck down Adonijah and he died, okay? Just like that. That was his brother. So now you can understand why I said that was a terrible reaction, because he did promise Adonijah that he would not harm a hair on his head, right? He gave him relief. But in his power, right, this is that drunk with power moment that King Solomon immediately experiences after his father's death. Mind you, he's very, very young. King Solomon is not but 15 years old during this time. He's very young. So this is what, honestly, we're wondering why the Lord is angry, right? Why the Lord got mad. This is what the Lord was warning about. Part of what he was warning about when we instill somebody with the power of a king. It's not to be taken lightly. It's a very serious thing. And what comes of the person who has that power, they become drunk. They can become drunk with the power, and they might ignore things and do irrational things, as we learned that it was very common, with the militarization, and then now this, with your own family. We see it all the time in stories and dramatic recreations, all that stuff. Anyways, yes, he killed his brother because he simply asked, like, can I have this woman as my wife? I don't think Solomon thought he was entitled to her. Maybe he did. Maybe he had some kind of love or secret affection for her that was not vocalized. But he saw it as a slap in the face, really, for him to even ask. And it derived death. I don't think that was very nice, if I'm being quite so honest. Additionally, Solomon removed Abiathar from the priesthood of the Lord, fulfilling the word the Lord had spoken at Shiloh about the house of Eli. So Abiathar was the one that was kind of approving of Adonijah being king. He was kind of on his side, I would say. So he removed him from the priesthood, and I guess this says this fulfills the word of the Lord, the word the Lord has spoken at Shiloh about the house of Eli, how it wouldn't be completely maintained as a priesthood. So he appoints a new priest. I'm sure that will come up again. Anyways, when the news reached Joab, who had conspired also with Adonijah, though not with Absalom. He fled to the tent of the Lord and took hold of the horns of the altar. So Joab is scared. He's scared. He's worried. He's like, okay, Solomon is coming in hot. He is coming into the power hot. He is, ready to chop heads, that sort of thing. Joab is very frightened, with good reason. It says here, so Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, went up and struck down Joab and killed him. He was buried at his home out in the country. So, boom, just like that. And this is the part here where I say friendship closes its eyes, because King Solomon, being the young child that he is not doing the killing. He's ordering his right-hand man, Benaiah, to do the killing. He's closing his eyes to this death, right? This friendship, right? He's closing his eyes. Yes, you're my brother. You're my friend. Yes, you were my king's military man. You're my friend. But I am closing my eyes. I'm turning my cheek, and I'm going to have my right-hand man kill you. Yep, friendship certainly does close his eyes. Although he's not enacting the killing and the murdering, he's certainly ordering it. It definitely falls on his shoulders. We'll see what the consequences of that may be. Maybe the Lord isn't so hard-pressed about this. In the nature of things, right? Everything happens for a reason. It is unfortunate. We talk about, death being an unfortunate thing and a terrible thing, and yes, to murder somebody is a sin, but also to commit adultery is also a sin. You know what I'm saying? So, we think of murder as such a terrible thing, but they're all kind of looked at in one way, right? And everything has to happen for a reason. And sometimes death is not such a bad thing in the eyes of the Lord. But we'll learn, we'll see what happens. Solomon actually does have a very blessed reign from what I've, remembered from this time. But let's go ahead and read on here. Joab, done, right? He kind of got that he deserved that in the slightest, but let's go ahead and move on. Then the king sent for Shimei and said to him, build yourself a house in Jerusalem and live there, but do not go anywhere else. The day you leave and cross the Kidron Valley, you can be sure you will die, and your blood will be on your own head. And Shimei stayed in Jerusalem for a long time. So we're pausing here because this is actually one of the orders that King David gave to Solomon, was about Shimei. And if we remember who Shimei was, he was the one, when the king was running from Absalom, he was the one throwing rocks at King David. He was throwing rocks. He's saying, the blood of the house of Saul is on your hands. You're terrible, because Shimei is a Benjamite. And Saul was also a Benjamite. Okay? So that's where that comes from. Anyways, interesting. I don't know why he does this, but he comes down a little bit from his power trip, and he asks Shimei to come live in Jerusalem. Why he does this, I don't know. And then it says here, he lived in Jerusalem for some time. And then eventually he said, but he gave him this weird rule, right? You cannot leave. And the day you leave will be the day you die. So one day, I think Shimei's slave escaped or something, servant ran away. He had to go after him or her. And at that point, when he left to go after his or her servant, the king gave order to Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, and he went down and struck Shimei down, and he died. Boom. That's the end of Shimei. But Shimei was that one, one of the troublemakers that was throwing rocks at the king, and the king said, don't let his gray head go down easy. That was one of his instruction as well. And it ends with this here: the kingdom was now established in Solomon's hands. It says this again and again, first to begin and then to end as well. Yes, love is blind, right? Did King David, right, though he loved his son, did he expect him to carry out the things in the order that he did or how he did them? Probably not, right? He's, as I mentioned, he was a very young child, so he didn't expect, Solomon to just come right in right away, right, and really instill terror in all of these individuals, eventually resulting in their death. but it does set kind of like a moment where, okay, yes, his kingdom is now established, right? His power is set. People are starting to fear him. We talked about how fear of the Lord is important for the development of the relationship and respect. First comes respect, then comes the relationship and the love. So that's important, and that's why it's difficult also for the Lord to just grant eternal blessing, to those who call themselves kings, just because, you're kind of equating, you're playing with power, It's one of those things. It's always, happened, and it's always going to be a thing, for the time being. But yeah, that's all it is, you guys. The kingdom is now established in Solomon's hands, and he definitely came by storm to make that so. Being such a young child, we're going to learn. He's going to develop and grow with age. I did read ahead a little bit. I know what's coming. The next few chapters, and Solomon's relationship with the Lord is going to grow and develop, which should make him, more humble and gentle, and that sort of thing. But his reign was very blessed. Not to say that the Lord is going to, curse all kings, forever. No, his reign was very blessed, because it all comes down to that personal relationship. How much are you personally putting into that relationship? So that's that, you guys. Yeah, when I read it, I was like, oh, really? Like, he has to go on a killing spree? But that's just how that is, unfortunately. Alright, thanks for listening, you guys. Have a blessed rest of your week, and I'll catch you very, very soon. Goodbye.